Alright, so for everybody, Carrie, raise your hand. This is Miss Carrie Doolittle. She works out here. We will be looking at her building. She works out at the admin building and does a lot of those things I was talking about that Carrie used to do. Making sure, you know, when the beaver dams up part of the river, she goes and deals with it. When people think selfie sticks and bears are a good combination, she goes and deals with it. All those fun things. So she has, you know, a lot of info, as you can hear. She'll let people know some places to go and see. So we're going to head around here and go up to the filter beds. We did film. Alright. I'm kind of try to come around here and talk loudly enough to get all of you. Stragglers? Okay. I love your umbrella.
Parasol.
Parasol. Alright. So the beds do not look like what they would have looked like around 1910. We had to do a project for Strontia Springs to dredge the bottom of the reservoir. So after, you know, Buffalo and Haven fires, with all of that natural areas burned, lots of rock and dirt started going down the river and going into the reservoirs. And so the bottom of Strontia started filling up. So we really needed to dredge it. But the project was a little more complex than the people we contracted with expected, because it's very heavy rock down there, not just sand. And they weren't prepared for these jagged, heavy pieces of rock. So lawsuit, 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 that project didn't get finished. But in here, what you see that's now up at grade, this is all stuff that came out of Strontia. So the beds were about 10 feet deep, 10, 12, something like that. And so we filled all this stuff that's now brought it up to grade, came out of Strontia Springs at the bottom. So that's why this does not look like all those pictures we were looking at and all those drawings, because it has been filled in. But towards the back were those sedimentation beds when they were pulling it off of the river, and then towards the front it was, I always forget how this is numbered, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they had them different sizes. That way, depending on how much water they wanted to release, they could do one big one and one small one, or 2 small ones and 1 big one to come up with the number of million gallons they needed to release on the day. So some of those pictures you were looking at, the bed, some of the beds were completely empty, and it's because they just weren't running them, you know, at full summer capacity. They didn't have to have every one of the beds full and going. So what would happen is, if you followed this house, which is the only remaining valve house of the 3 or 4 that used to be along here, that's how they turn on and off the beds. And so they're all connected. So the beds were all connected via the valve houses to that pipe that ran down the middle and went over there to that building, which was the chlorine house. That's where treatment happened. So first, we filtered it. Then we treated it with chemicals to kill all the invisible stuff. And then it went by a conduit 3, gravity flow into 10. And it went to Ashland Reservoir, which is on the west side of Denver. So of course, the one remaining building was valve house, was the worst shape of the buildings that existed, because that's how these things go. So those other buildings were pulled out, and this one is remaining as a representative. So over there is the trail. Up the hill that away would have been the schoolhouse that no longer exists. That's now the Martin Marietta. The cemetery is over that way. Very general. Through those trees is Platte Canyon Reservoir. Over there on that side, other side of the trees would be Highline Canal that runs on the far side of the reservoir. So that's kind of all that stuff, and then Roxborough is that way. Foothills is over there too. So kind of giving you a big overview. You guys have any questions about beds?
Does Highland Canal end here at Waterton Canyon?
It starts up the
Start,
canyon. Yeah, for the dam.
But it doesn't start here. It starts further up?
It does. So if you're going up the canyon and you come around and you see, if you're going up the hill, it's on your left. There's a dam there. The first one, that's the Highline Canal Dam.
Okay.
And then the one that's higher up is ours that diverts to Marston Reservoir.
Okay.
The other one is where the one that's ours for the distribution system is where many of the sheep congregate. They like that spot.
So how far up should we go up? Can you walk the full 2 miles on the High Line from here?
The High Line is on the other side of the river, so you don't actually walk it, but you can see it until the cut through the mountain. So the dam takes it on one side of the mountain, it comes out the other side of the mountain, and then there's a flume that comes down.
So can you walk it this way up to there or not?
I think you can, but you can't get like all the way up because
So you have a microphone from the road.
of the High Line, yeah. Because the canal, since it's on that side of the river, you can't access all of it. But you can get over like there.
And Holly, aren't we right at the junction of Douglas County and Jefferson County here?
Yeah.
Where is the county line?
Terry, where's the county line? It's around here somewhere. Douglas County versus Jefferson.
At the
line.
river here, so you go into Douglas once you cross over, but up the canyon, when you get to the bridge, 4.5 miles up, it switches once again into Douglas.
So we're in Jeffco
Right
here.
now. But don't run over there. Or if you do, go like this. You'll be 2 counties at once.
Okay. You can call all the emergency services at the same time. So when asked about the sand washer, it used to be kind of over here. It was this big machine that they would dump the sand into, and it would wash. And this town, being 23 miles, I believe it is, from Denver at the time, and a solid 12 or 15 miles from Littleton, they ran like a company town. They did all their own stuff. So when the railroad came out in the 1940s, they repurposed a lot of the metal from that to fix the sand washer. So by the 80s, half the sand washer was pieces of old railroads. Because the guys out here they had the blacksmith shop. They were not near it much, so they just repurposed stuff. They were sustainable when sustainable wasn't cool.
I'm
Where did the
sorry I missed
railroad turn
Monday night. Maybe you said, but what was the purpose of the railroad here? It went all the way up to the dam?
No, we didn't have anything to do with the railroad. It was mostly for the different little towns that were up there. If you wanted to go, Strontia Springs Reservoir used to be in Strong Springs Resort. So there were cabins and things. Platte Canyon Hotel up the mountain, which we do own, was also a resort. So a lot of people from Denver would go on holiday up in the hills, and they'd take that railroad.
Was it just a spur, or did it connect to something else up there?
It connected to something, but I don't remember. Railroad history is not my thing. But it wasn't a full gauge. It was the more narrow gauge railroad as well. But it went up to a bunch of towns, and I don't remember where it terminated.
And is that the same railroad that was down by the entrance of Roxborough down here?
I don't know if it was connected to that one or not.
Because that was a narrower gauge as well down there.
Yeah, I don't think they were connected, but I'm not sure.
My parents had a cabin in Buffalo Creek in the early 40s.
Mm-hmm.
There were a lot of older families there, long-time families, and they said that the husbands would come. There was a stop in Buffalo Creek, a stop in Foxton and Buffalo Creek, and it went on up like through Wellington Lake and Bailey, and that the husbands would come to work in Denver over the weekend, leave the families up there, then come back on the train Friday night, come back to Denver on, and it did run up there. And they used to ride on it.
Nice. Yeah, they talk a lot about in this facility because, the one-room schoolhouse went through 8th grade, I think it was. So the kids would go up to Littleton for high school. And from people talking about their experiences, because, kids that lived on this campus were not a big deal to the water company records-wise. But from the oral histories and stuff, they would talk about a lot of the kids would do the same thing in Littleton, like live there during the school week and come back home on the weekends. Because it's just on horse, not a quick commute. All right, are we ready to go back down over to the department, Denver Municipal Water Works? Those are sort of the unofficial names. All right, so next we're going to go into the barn blacksmith shop. You can kind of see that this was the barn part with the hayloft up the top. When you go in there, you guys can see in the windows where the horses were gnawing on the wood of the windows. In there, we've got hung up a few different things. It's set up like there's blacksmith materials. If we actually ran it, we'd set the hayloft on fire, so it's non-functional. The blacksmith side of things was actually down here. So it was blacksmith, storage, barn. Within the barn, so there's blacksmith stuff to look at. There are a bunch of hydrants in there. We used to cast our own hydrants. So you can see the casting pieces and then the hydrants that they were made into. On the wall, there are also some ice related, some cutting and some rippers, because the beds would freeze over in winter. They would cut it for the ice house. And so we have a couple of really, really cute pictures that we got from people who lived out here in the 30s. The little kids would ride the ice blocks around, so their dads would be cutting the ice blocks. They'd ride them around to the edge, and then the dads would go and stack them in the house. Super cute. So that's why that's in there, because it used to be an ice source. There, I think, is still a piece of the wood stave pipe, so you can see how that's constructed. And it's just like a barrel on the ground. You got the staves that are interconnected, and then it's held together by a metal piece. I think that's the majority of the stuff in there to point up. So if you guys want to go in that way and then maybe come back out this way, we'll get some traffic flow going.
Oxygen away, but air has tons of oxygen in it, so once air hits it, it drives it
in different, released, treated, reused, kind of thing.
What water fills all those old gravel ponds around 470? Santa Fe and 470.
I don't know because I don't think those are our gravel pits.
Oh, over here? Yeah, no.
Yeah, because our gravel pits are out up more like north.
Commerce City
Yeah,
area.
Cherry Creek and stuff.
Are they just naturally filled, or is it coming from Chatfield? They're below.
I don't
the
know.
dam in Chatfield.
Yeah,
Maybe
it might be
maybe
connected
Englewood.
to Chatfield, but that's
They might be Englewoods.
yeah. There are lots. There are lots and lots of facilities we don't own, and then there are lots and lots. Of
I bet
places
it does
we do
come
own.
from Chatfield. I mean,
Yeah, since
where
they're
else?
below
But
there,
huh?
would they have pipes?
We might all be in trouble. Instead of just you two normally.
Maybe somebody unlocked it.
Mark, this would be perfect. Don't go in. They're doing some work. This is the powerhouse. So that picture we saw that had the mechanical equipment would have been over here, powering the whole facility. Over here used to be a pipe because initially this was coal run, and then they changed to electricity. So in the 30s they sold off the pipe, which makes me believe we switched to electricity in the 30s. I don't actually have records, but it seems logical. So over here, that little building, which is not these days, that was the treatment building, the chlorine house. So that's where they added the treatment from the stuff that was filtered, powerhouse. That's the pump house that was taking the water around Chatfield Reservoir when it went in. So Chatfield went in 65, this went in 72. It isn't used much these days.
Yeah, they had one at the time. Yeah, it was probably a freestanding stove. Oh yeah.
So that was a bedroom.
Yeah. Did you?
And then these are the guys doing, when they were hand, for a long time, they would hand dig that Schmitzdecker off of the beds, or use horses. So the last horse employee of Denver Water was Dutch the mayor, and she lived in the barn. She was out here at Kassler. She died in the 30s, and they replaced her with a tractor. But she would help with cleaning the beds with the dragging. But the guys would get out there and just in rows, dig it out, put it in barrels, take it over to the sand washer to be moved. Well, it would be kind of a pipe that would add water so that the sand would move over to the washer and then clean it. So very labor intensive. This jacket over here, they would actually, uniform wise, they would give these guys these nice heavy jackets because in the winter, the beds